Good morning, good afternoon, maybe good night if you're watching this at night. Sorry about this kind of being off center. Hope you guys are well. Let's see here. It's May 4th, Cinco de Mayo tomorrow. Hope you're doing well. And summer will be here before we know it. In the U.S. history segment, by the way, this is world history. But in the U.S. history segment, I was talking about how distance learning for me is going both fast and slow. And it's going fast in the sense that like one day just bleeds into the next. But it's going slow because I miss being on campus and I miss engaging with colleagues and students and being in the classroom, and there's that energy. When the bell rings, everyone's walking around. There's kind of a little bit of white noise in the air. And anyway, I miss all that. That's the best part of teaching. But we're doing our best. I know you're doing your best as a student. I'm doing my best as a teacher. Our administrators and our supervisors are trying to create a system. They're doing the best they can. So summer will be here before we know it. And I'm hoping that this curve has flattened and we are able to have a good summer and come back in the fall and put this thing in the rearview mirror. I know there's talk about possibly a second wave coming in the winter, but I'm going to have positive thoughts, and I'm going to pray that doesn't happen, because I want to get back into a regular schedule, and I'm sure you do too. Okay, so what are we doing this week? We're going to be the foundation, or the basis for this week's lessons going to be mostly in the textbook. I will be throwing some things out during the week. And if you notice, Mondays, I put your assignments that are due Friday, you know that. And then I sprinkle kind of salt and pepper some little readings or videos throughout the week that I want you to take a look at. You can just ghost those. Obviously, I can't make you do it, but it'll help you understand the assignment part better. So I highly recommend that you do it. So quick little review here. World War II ends. We kind of slide into the Cold War. Remember, World War II ends in 1945. And then we have this long kind of drawn out 45 years of the Cold War. And we studied that for a while, and that just wrapped up. And now we're going to kind of look back and see what happened during these 40 years during the Cold War. Obviously, there was foreign policy between these two superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States, but there was also these kind of proxy countries, independent countries that were emerging. And we're going to focus this week on Southeast Asia and South Asia. So what does that mean? That basically means we're going to be looking at India. We're going to be looking at Pakistan. We'll also be looking at some of the kind of smaller nations like Malaysia, the Philippines, East Timor. We'll also be looking eventually at Southeast Asia. We'll look at Vietnam and some other changes that are happening in Southeast Asia. So what are you going to be looking for this week? Basically, without getting too detailed, because this isn't a lecture, I'm just trying to give you an overview. I want you to look at India, and we looked at India in this world history course, or survey, if you will. We looked at them and the emergence of India through the British Empire. And so when we studied that a few months ago, we were looking at the pros and cons of the British system. Some of the pros were they brought industrialization, they brought academics, they brought a system of government that was efficient and in a lot of ways dealt in, I use the term equity or fairness, but it wasn't fair for everybody. It was, obviously if you were British and you were Anglo, you had more rights. So that was the positive. The negative part of it was that the natives had very little power and they were being exploited. Their country and their culture were kind of being trashed. So what we'll find is the emergence of India, and we're going to look at how they grow. And then we're going to kind of look at this idea that within the subcontinent of India, there was really two power groups. The first was Hindu. That's a religion. And the other was Muslims. And so you have these two groups in the country, and they can't seem to work things out. In the United States here, we have freedom of religion, and you can openly move, and as you know, religion doesn't prohibit you from doing anything. But at this time in India, there was so much contention that they decided to kind of split the two groups up, and so people that are Muslim are going to migrate to Pakistan, and then India is going to stay Hindu. So that's going to create kind of a long standing battle. And it's interesting too that when countries split, is it good? In some cases, it does work out. In other cases, it doesn't. If you look at the United States Civil War, the South wanted to break away based on their view of states' rights, slavery, and economics. At the time, Abraham Lincoln refused, and we had our Civil War. So we didn't allow that to happen. It'd be really interesting if that did happen. What would the United States look like if it was cut in half? So India and Pakistan decide to do that. They break, and you're going to have this long-standing rivalry. You're going to look at Kashmir, and you can also look at an arms race, nuclear weapons. So India and Pakistan kind of are late to the game, but they get nuclear weapons, and so that's kind of a tinderbox, if you will. We'll also look at Bangladesh, which is kind of a wild idea. When India splits, Pakistan's over here, but they also have a small region on the east that's also Pakistan. So it's like India's in the middle. Eventually, the eastern side of Pakistan becomes Bangladesh, and you're going to read about that as well. So, what's the overarching theme of this week's unit? Well, it's going to be emerging nations and the struggle that happens within emerging nations. You should kind of think of PERSIG, if you can't think about the politics, the economics, the religion, the social, the intellectual, the geographic. That's all in there. And there's a lot of struggle. Freedom and democratic ideals, creating a republic. It sounds great and easy, but it's really, really challenging and complicated. And typically, it's because there's a power vacuum. And whenever there's instability in a nation state, this creates a race for power, and it can be dangerous. It can lead to, we'll look at Pol Pot later on in Cambodia, and we're going to look at some of these oppressive, tyrannical governments that emerge. So, but for this week, just take a look at this, and it's really going to be focusing on Southeast Asia and the emergence of a lot of these independent nations. As always, if you have any questions or you're struggling with the reading or something you don't understand, email me. If you need to, we could set up a Zoom meeting where we can meet one-on-one if you really need some help. I hope in terms of your social emotional state, you're hanging in there. I'll tell you a funny little anecdote. Story is one of my daughters, Zoe. She literally, she normally woke up at 6 o'clock to go to school, and then it became 7. And then 8, and then 9. It got to 11 o'clock, and we had to have a sit down with her. We're like, okay, you have to be showered and out of bed and doing stuff by 10. So this distance learning can lead to some unorthodox sleeping habits, and sometimes it can be hard, to get out of bed and get going. But I would recommend to my students as well to make sure that you're out there exercising, staying both physically and mentally active and engaged. That's really important for your mental health as well as your emotional health. Movement is so important. Go for a walk, go for a run, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, get a sweat going, all right? Okay, guys, I will talk to you later, and have a great week. Thank you very much.